One of the things about a lectern in front of a speaker is, for me, I always, and going to ministerial school, it's like one of those things like protection. Because we as human beings are so good about protection. Even the concept of space, like personal space, which gets turned into kind of like a psychological need. Personal space is really about personal protection. It's about defensiveness. Because we all kind of know what's going to happen if we get too close to each other. Something wonderful, and we're not going to let that happen. Because we won't have control over it. We don't know what we'll do. We really don't. I almost kissed a cop one time because I fell in love with the fact. He gave me a ticket, too. He gave me a ticket, but he was so beautiful in the way he described. We just sat by the road for like 45 minutes and talked. And he gave me like a $5 ticket. This is in Montana. You could speed it was like reasonable and prudent. Somehow I got a $5 ticket, and he pulled me over, and we had this kind of just 45 minutes, and it was like, my God, you're so beautiful. And he told me a story about another guy that stopped from back east somewhere. Back east gets a bad rep, but where he stopped this guy, and the guy just was complaining. It was a $5 ticket, and he kept complaining. Finally, he's an older gentleman cop, and he said, just get out of here. And the guy said, no, give me a ticket. And he said, no, you do not deserve a ticket. Go. And the guy finally like, okay, all right. You don't get my gift. You don't get my gift. Well, we had 5 weeks of talking about truth fundamentals. I just finished 2 workshops on truth fundamentals, so I'm truth fundamental all over the place. And then in the talks the last 5 weeks, we've had talks on God, on how big is your God. We've had another week on your connection with God as a being of God and what that is about. And we've had a talk on the law of mind action, or the law of mind action, as I call it, and how it works in the manifest universe, how things are formed. And then last week we had explanation with Robert on prayer and meditation, how we have conscious contact with God. And today I'm wrapping it up with like community, and Robert wrote this. I liked it. It was like community, sharing, and the Great Commission. And so that's what I'm working on today, which is great, wonderful, because it's Valentine's week, and the one word sermon on this topic is love. It's just love. I was thinking this morning about in the 70s or 80s, there was a big thing about the laughing Jesus. Did you ever see those pictures of the laughing Jesus? Right? Yeah. And I don't know if he was a laughing Jesus. I kind of look at his life. He was a calm presence. He seemed like he was a serious person at times. And I think he had his moments. I do, but I don't think he was running around laughing while everybody else was going like, you're nuts. Except for a very few. And if you noticed, as his ministry increased, he was a total failure in the world. Because it says that people walked with him no longer after many of his talks. And eventually he walked alone to his death, alone. That's not a very good description for a church. Everybody abandoning to one. But that's the path he walked. But I do think he had I do really feel like because I kind of I do have a presence and awareness of him, and he does have a spirit that I just really like, a childlike, and I love it. And I keep thinking that it's like the Beatles song, and sometimes I have pictures of him sitting down with like Peter. Peter's going like, God, what are we going to do about Andrew and James? They are just nutso. They are just they want to replace you. They don't even know what they're talking about. And I can just see Jesus sitting there saying to Peter, going, Peter, all you need is love. All you need is love. And it's true. Because we live in a safe universe. We just don't know it's safe. We don't know it because love is vulnerability. And the Great Commission, I didn't even actually get that till when you wrote that. I didn't really kind of focus on that till like yesterday. Because for me, and I didn't ask you if that's what you meant, but for me, the Great Commission is it's kind of like the golden rule, or love your neighbor as yourself. And in the Gospels, including the Gospel of Thomas, it's only mentioned once in the Gospel of Thomas, but there's 10 mentions that relate to the golden rule in the Gospels, and there's 10 additional references to loving your neighbor as yourself. And the one that I like the most for loving your neighbor as yourself, well, one of them Jesus doesn't even say, because he just basically, a lawyer comes up to him and says, well, how do I know God? And Jesus says, well, what's the greatest commandment? And he tells him, according to law. He says, according to law, Hebraic law, what's the greatest commandment? And he rattles off, love your, Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus basically says, well, go do that. Go do that. The one of the writing that I like the most is in, one of them. It's the same in Mark and Matthew pretty much. Then one of the scribes, this is in Mark 12:28 through about 31. Then one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second like it is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. And early on in ministry, I used to when I ever quote that one, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, I would say that's the problem with the world, is we do love our neighbor like we love ourselves. We don't. We don't love ourselves, and we don't love our neighbor. And we don't love ourselves because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust who we are. We think we have to be something other to live in this world, to survive, which we don't have to be. We just have to face the consequences of letting go of what we think we are and what we keep in front of us, rather than facing who we are and see where that goes. Love your neighbor as yourself. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thy soul, guard him as the apple of thine eye. So it's about love, about practicing love and sharing. And to love oneself is really hard to do, and hard to love others in a world that is hostile. That's why the first commandment, the first thing about God, is so important. It's hard enough even when you understand that it's true, that it is a friendly universe, but you realize that you have grown up, and you have basically grown up in a place, and you've attached to a place that you believe, even if you have a positive attitude, you've been told to be wary, be careful, because you can be hurt, and you see people get hurt all the time. And so you can't have a minister or somebody up there and just basically say, this is the truth, you aren't your body, but so therefore don't have any care for it. Yeah, right. You're going to have care for it. And I think that's important too. However, your body isn't what you think it is, just like your mind and your heart are not what you think it is. The messages we've brought you these last 5 weeks, one thing is clear, is clear and connected with all, and that is that all, God, who you are, what happens in the world, how you contact God, and how you share and live and basically bear the fruit of the world, it's really about mind. It's about mind. About what you believe, and how you think. What you believe and how you think. I think it's the reason why, I've been a student of metaphysics and a student, more than a student of metaphysics. I'm not in the library. I was the guy that's out in the snowbank in Anchorage going like, what the heck is going on? I don't get it. I've just been practicing it, trying to live that life. But what I found out is that by doing that, and I learned a lot of things. I learned that when I think I'm alone, I'm never alone. And when I think that it's dark, it's never dark. I don't care how people, you come up to me, I do a lot of counseling, and people come up to me and say, but you don't know, Dale, how dark it is in here. And I just go like, it looks like this, there's a signpost here, you go down there, there's a hole there, you fell in, and it looks like this, smells like this, tastes like this. They go, you've been there. I go, yeah. And didn't it scare you? I said, no, actually it didn't scare me. What scared me was going there. That's what scared me, not actually the experience. Because when I got in it, I saw that God was light in the darkness. That's why Byron Katie, a wonderful teacher, she says that God is darkness sometimes, because that's the best way to know God, is to find God in the place where you think God is not. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Like God wouldn't be here. Because that's one place you can check off your list is that you have to cover. Now, you have to cover the places where God is not. That's why God is important, knowing God, because we have concepts of where God is missing. If we all knew and accepted that God was everywhere present, that nothing we did would be harmful, it could harm any of our loved ones or anything, there wouldn't be no problem. But it's that where God is not. And doing that on our own, even as we sit in a church here and we sit alone, we sit with our group of people, or we sit, in that place with our friends and those we know, it's still a form of being alone. And it's hard. It's also safe. But I'll bear witness. When I talk to somebody about they're in trouble, they say, you know this. I say, God's there. And I say, and I know it's hard. It's hard alone. But you know what's easy? What's easy is when we share love, we come together. It's an easy thing. Do you have any idea why it's easy when we come together? Because we're one. It's hard to be apart. And we think it's a natural state to be isolated. It isn't. We are just masters of it. One time I cut open a golf ball. Ever cut open a golf ball? I don't know if they're still like this, but I cut the hard white surface open, and inside it was all these rubber bands, and you start cutting on the rubber bands, and all of a sudden layers just go, and then you cut another thing, It's like you don't have to peel the golf ball apart. All you have to do is somehow break the tension and give a weakness to the tension, and it frees itself. We're like that. It's like and it's a perfect thing. God, if the ultimate thing, which I think it is, according to many spiritual teachings, is that we're to be one and really love ourselves as one, not love you as me, because even loving your neighbor as yourself, eventually Jesus knew that it meant to actually loving and being one with another person, being one. You love your neighbor as yourself, because if you get close, then you see that you're one, and it's like, then there's no effort to love. There's just wow. There's just wow. So if God was a person and that was the goal, I'd say, oh yeah, let's see, how should we make this work? It's safe, but we want them the ultimate is we want them to come together, right? Yeah. Well, okay, as we get into the later stages of spiritual development around love, how about if we make it just so darn painful to do it alone? Let's just make it really painful. And then when we're one, let's make it joyous. Let's just make it just this freedom. So one you can't do, and it just leads to ultimate pain of letting go. And then when you let go, you become one with everyone. You say, oh, this is the path. You ever been in an elevator? Yeah. I was in one the other day. I don't spend a lot of times in elevators anymore, but I was in one. Honest, I don't. I haven't been guided to go into buildings, I guess. Or need to a lot. I haven't resisted them, but I was in one the other day, and there was 3 or 4 people in it, and pushed the button, and I remembered, oh yeah, that's what happens in an elevator. We get in the elevator, and everybody goes, what are we looking at? Tell me what we're looking at. The numbers. Yeah. Because if we don't look at the numbers, are we interested in the numbers? Are we? No. What we're interested is in what would happen if we didn't look at the numbers, which is, I might look at you. Looking at you there is okay, but looking at you here, why is that so scary? We know why it's scary. Because we're all like golf balls. And we know if we look at someone's eyes, we will fall in love with them. We don't even know their story, but we will, like that cop I saw, I'll want to kiss him. Now, I'll probably get in jail, thrown in jail nowadays for doing that. But I'd say, why? I don't know. It just was that. Are you homosexual? I don't know. I just kissed him. Love, 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 love. The elevator's like that. It shows us that if we get close to each other, it's dangerous as far as holding on to control and not being who we are, which is a loss of control and being in love. One of my life experiences in this life is that I worked with an organization, or attended and worked with an organization for a while called the Foundation for Community Encouragement. It was founded by M. Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled and some other stuff. And they used to do a thing called community building that I went into. I went into it at a time when I was really broken. It was after my first church. My first church, I was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ for about 6 months. I mean, they were flying me all over the country with people like Jack Bowen. I don't know if you know some of these people, big-time Unity people. Because my church was the fastest-growing church in the Unity movement, and they were flying me everywhere. And within 6 months, I was the, what is it? What's the opposite of the Christ? Antichrist. The Antichrist. Yeah, I was the Antichrist. In 6 months, I was the, 6 months I was the, actually I wasn't, it didn't last 6 months. It was only about 4 months. Because they couldn't stomach me, and I couldn't survive that more than 4 months. And I was broken. I was so broken because I didn't know what had happened. Now I knew what happened, and I went to do this workshop with Scott Peck and his group, and it started with you get in the group, and it was like 3-day workshop, and you'd have long sessions. They'd go to like 7 or maybe 6 o'clock at night. But there would be after 3 hours, there would be a break. But you'd sit in a circle, and there would be 50 people from all over the world, really, and all different kinds of very diverse people, very diverse. And we'd sit in this circle, and they'd start out they'd use silence. They had 2 facilitators, and the facilitators wouldn't say anything except after the sessions. They'd say what they saw the group doing. And then you just sit there, and then the rule was everybody is inclusive. They couldn't force you, but don't leave. If it gets hard, don't leave. And speak when you're moved to speak, and don't speak if you're not moved to speak. And when that happened, you know what happened? It's just like a mini elevator. What I found was a group would go through an incredible experience. They would go through, and that's what Peck found. It would go through 4 phases. And those 4 phases would lead to a place of group bliss, individual bliss, called authentic community, where one thing that was consistent, when that group went into it, it would happen like this for everyone, and everyone would drop all their psychic weaponry like that. Why would you drop all your psychic weaponry? Not because you felt it was right, but for the first time in your life, you felt you were safe. which would have been total strangers. Some people you'd wrestled with very hard with them. It led to that each time. It went through the process, went like this. The first process when you were in the circle was called pseudo-community. I liken it to Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of death and dying. The first stage was a pseudo-community where you were together, but not really. You know, if anybody said something out of sorts, someone was always trying to fix it, you know, and say something nice. We were all trying to just get along and not have any problems. In Kubler-Ross's world, the first stage of death and dying, that's called denial. As Peck said, Peck said this, I like this, he said, fighting is better than pretending we have no differences. It is. You might not think that, but if you live enough time pretending, anything is better than pretending. You get sick of it. So there's this pseudo-community. And then after a while, after a number of hours, maybe even a day, well, it didn't even take that long. Usually it'd be about 6 hours of doing this. People would be saying things what would start come out of them, like the elevator. They weren't looking at the numbers, they were looking at each other, and they didn't know what would come out of them, and stuff would come out. And the next thing you know, you're in chaos. People were saying things and doing things, and nothing was making any sense. It's like the truth was coming out, and you had no idea how to control it. A lot of it was very ugly. And things were said, and it would stay in that. But when you're in chaos, and chaos was the realm for Kubler-Ross she'd call anger and bargaining. You're angry and you're bargaining because you don't want to be in this place. So if you're dying, for instance, you're angry that you're dying, and you're trying to bargain to figure out how to get out of that dying part. And there's only 2 ways out of chaos. One is to reorganize back into pseudo-community. Go like, can we agree not to talk about these things? And da-da-da-da-da. Problem with the PECS group was you could have no organization like that. Someone would say, could we agree not to talk about these things? And you'd have someone say, no, I'm going to talk about it all I want. In fact, I'm talking about it right now. So you could go back into pseudo-community, or you could go back into denial. But the more you went back into denial after you'd come out of it, the less time you could spend into it because it was intolerable. And you'd end up back in chaos again. And you do that. You go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, people who are going through dying would experience that too. Go back and forth from denial to, find maybe some doctor that would say, oh, well, this is the thing that we think will really do it for you. And back and forth, back and forth. And then at some point, something would happen where there was one other way, and that was called emptiness. You found and a group would find emptiness. This is what I found phenomenal. Can you imagine a group of people finding emptiness? Like letting go together? Or really basically all of them looking around at each other and going like, you know what? I'm just out of results. I'm just out of fixes. I'm just out of them. I don't know how to make this happen. Well, it's quite easy for a group to do that when they don't have a lot of busyness to keep them distracted from facing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like who we are. A lot of our busyness is about it, and it's not bad busyness, but there's a thing to it where we're saying, if I keep busy enough, I won't have to listen to what's really going on inside me. Because if I listen to what's going on inside me, especially from chaos, what my mind's going to tell me is, you really don't have any control on this, and there's no hope for you fixing it, which is actually the way you let go. Do you understand that with God? I mean, you don't really know God, basically, until we say, this situation is not, I don't know what to do about it. It's a problem, and I just got to let it go, and I don't know how. I can't do anything about it. Well, when a group would go into emptiness, it would immediately go into community. And when a person who's in death and dying goes totally into depression over it, which is the same thing, it's like emptiness, then the idea of acceptance comes where there's something new, And that's where wonder happens. That's where love happens for us. I just want to tell you one little thing about that. One time I went into community. We'd been wrestling back and forth with chaos for like about a day. It was hard. And finally, there's one guy that was playing the devil's advocate. I usually played the devil's advocate, it seemed like. I didn't try it. It just ended up that way because I'm kind of frank, if you haven't figured that out. And I don't have a lot of boundaries with my frankness. And if you don't believe that, talk to Marina. You know, I really, but he was doing that, and he turned to we had been wrestling with this chaos and going back and forth and feeling like what was going on. We didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, some older lady, sweet little old lady, was saying something, and this guy's name was Don, and he just said something like, I'm not going to say what he said because it was foul, and he just said it was like, you know, I'm tired of hearing all that crap and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, why don't you just, you know, I don't believe any of that. And the group kind of went, oh, God. And then all of a sudden, it got quiet, and all of a sudden, another little old lady from across the 50-circle seat circle, and she says, Don, she says, did you used to live in Iowa? And he goes, this is a different lady, and he says, yeah. She says, did you live on Maple Street? And he goes, yeah. He says, a little gray house with brown shutters and stuff? Yeah. You and your brother, I used to babysit you. And the whole group went, what is going on here? We can't manage this. We don't even know what's happening. And just like that, we let go. Everything unraveled. We didn't set down the thing about letting go as a whole, it's not something we do with our will. What we do with our will is hold on. That's what we do with our will. When we tire of our will, then we let go to what has always been, which is who we are, the love that we are. And in practice, and I'll end with this because I'm going to know I'm a little late. In practice, I think it means more of, it starts with loving yourself and your neighbor just as you are, best you can. But you can't forget something, and I really hope this 5-week series has really got you thinking about that, and that is, Jesus said something very, very important. He said, you must know the truth, and the truth will make you free. He never says in any way that you have to use the truth or apply it in a certain way. He just says, if you're willing to know the truth will make you free. And if you're willing to know that you're just pretending to be alone while you're actually connected and you just haven't figured out how to let go, that is the truth that will free you, that will help you, and not just help you, it will walk you through the letting go into the place of your dreams, of what you were born for, what we were all born for. Everything we do when we give to each other is a reflection of that. It's our way. And when we give a gift, we know that. If we give a gift to somebody, we give that gift. There's a part of it that says, I want to give you more. I want to give you me. I want to kiss the cop. It's like, I want to kiss you. I want to be one with you. Because that's who we are. And then I walk away from that, and I don't say, well, he went his way, I went mine, and he's a cop and I'm me. I just walk away and I go, that was interesting. That was beautiful. Show me more, Lord. Show me more. Thank you for listening.